All right, so what I have is a finished cartoon jumble composition, but I've just colored it this kind of dark magenta purpley color. But what if I wanted to, instead of just cut it out of one color, what if I was Arturo Herrera and I wanted to cut this design, instead of out of just one solid sheet of paper, I wanted to cut it out of like a paisley fabric, something with a lot of different color. So then I might go back to Google and I might do an image search and I might look up paisley. I don't think I spelled it right, but it will figure it out. Pattern. See, Google is like the dyslexic's friend. I love it. So what if I think this looks great? Well, the problem is it's kind of small. So how can I make sure I'm only looking at images that are going to print well? I go to Tools, and I go to Size, and I'm going to say larger than what? Yeah, we said 8 for, and this is going to be especially important if we want something that fills the whole space. And sure enough, I have some interesting examples. And I don't want you to mess with the colors, the color adjustments yet, though of course we'll be learning how to do that. But I'm just going to find something that's kind of interesting. Oh, this is very psychedelic. This one I like quite a bit. And remember, we're using someone else's work here. I don't want their work to be overpoweringly obvious, but I don't think it will be. Okay, so I'm going to view the image, make sure it's high quality. And this is a rug. And it's a little bit of a blurry photograph. It's not bad. Let's see if this one's better. Yeah, this is a batik painting, so dyed fabric, and that looks really nice. So what am I going to do? Well, there's a few things. I wanted to show you this. This is extra. But usually what I would do is this. I would save it to the desktop, right? And then keep it in my resource files. But if I'm in a pinch and I'm on a Mac, this is one of the nice things. As long as I'm on the full res file, I can just drag and drop right into Photoshop. Does that make sense? And it will automatically save it within the Photoshop file, but it will not be a smart object because there is no outside file to link it to. So now I use transform because it's not quite big enough, but that's okay. It's just a background. I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, and I'm going to make it fill my whole space. Whoops. Use the Move tool, make it fill the whole space. So this could be a background if I like. I can just move it behind. But that kind of overpowers it, right? So here's the other option. I can move it on top, turn it off, but then check this out. Use my magic wand. Same settings. Instead of selecting white, the magic wand is excellent at selecting empty space. So I'm going to have it select anywhere there's no pixels. Okay. Now the problem is, if I keep that as the selection, and then I select that out of my textile, then I'll just have all the negative space. So instead, I now want to go to Select Inverse. And that will swap my selection so that everything that isn't empty space is selected. Now, why did I do that instead of just selecting black? Well, because I have a blue line in there. I have little gray pixels at the edges. So this will get me a cleaner selection. Now I can move that selection. This is a little advanced stuff. We'll be learning this more later. But I can move that selection to my fabric layer. And then I can hit Command J to duplicate it. And voila. What I've done is just cut out my jumble out of that fabric, right? Now, would you recognize that fabric? No, not at all. But does it give a lot of kind of visual interest and engagement to my line work? Absolutely. And if I wanted to layer those two up together, let me turn on my effects here. Like I like it, but I don't like it so strong. Well, then I can play with the opacity of that layer and kind of fade them between. So many options. It's ridiculous. Okay. Now, what if I want a background? I can do the same thing with compositing a background. Or I can just fill the background. I'll just do it this way. Take the background layer, double click it so that it renames itself layer 0 so it's not locked. And then double click it again to get layer styles. And instead of adding a color overlay, just to make the background a solid color, which would look like that, right? I'm going to do the one underneath it. I'm going to add a gradient overlay. And with the gradient, I can choose from a variety of presets, and then I can modify, right? And you can have a lot of fun with these. And you can play, of course, with the opacity of that. Right? And then there are other layer styles you can play with under effects. We can give it a texture. And we can make it a really, really bumpy texture. You know, we can do all these things without actually making our own pixels. And then, of course, we can turn those things off as well. All right, I like that. I'm going to show you one other thing we can do with layer styles. Now that I have this color cut out, I'm going to go ahead and put it at 100%. Let's add a layer style to it, but instead of doing a color overlay, which would just undo all the work I did, I'm going to add a drop shadow. And the drop shadow will help it look a little bit more like a cutout, like I'm hanging it up on the wall and it's casting a shadow. And I can set the angle of the light and how soft the shadow is. I can even set the color of the shadow. If I don't want it to be black, I can let it be kind of a warm shadow, like maybe an orange. Or a warm brown, maybe a purplish brown. And this can be very subtle, but it can help give your cartoon jumble some definition. So you see? So now it looks like that. And doesn't that look like paper cut up? Right. But and it's a layer style, so I can always just turn it off. But it's nice. Now I think I'm done. I'm happy with this. So when I save it, I am actually going to turn off that background layer. Even though it would print that way if I printed it, I don't want the white pixels as part of it. I'll explain why in a little bit. Because I want to save this as a cutout. I don't want to save it as a rectangular image full of pixels. And so what I do now is I save it as a Photoshop file, just save, and then I will save it a second time because you cannot upload Photoshop files to PhotoBucket. You can't put them on websites. They're too big. The internet browsers don't know how to decode them. So we have to save them in an online format. And we'll be learning a lot about digital formats. So now, once I've saved it as my PSD file, which I use to work on it, which has all my layers, all my different effects, now I go to File, Save As. And I'm going to save it with the exact same name, but a different format. So remember, you never type in this code. You let the computer fill it in. So you go down to Format. This is digital format. And I'm going to pick not JPEG, which we'll use later, but JPEG, if I chose it, would fill in all the empty space with white pixels. Because JPEGs can only ever be rectangular, right? But I want it to be what's called a PNG. And a PNG is an online format that supports transparency, so can have empty space within the design. And I want to save it not to exercise 1 as my folder. Where do I always want to save new files for this class? So I'll put it in the folder at the end of the class. But in order to visually see that it's saved, I want to always save to the desktop. And the shortcut for that is just hitting Command D when you're in this search, save window. So I'm saving it as a PNG to the desktop. Notice I did not type in PNG. It automatically did that for me. I changed it here. And it's warning me here that my layers are not going to be saved in the PNG. And there is no online format that will save your layers, right? That's why we have the PSD version. So I hit save. And now, who remembers the shortcut for getting back to the desktop? I know it was a week ago, but it's a one-key shortcut. F11, very good, to sweep all of this away, and I'm just waiting for that to appear. Now, Photoshop, especially the newest versions of Photoshop, it's the weirdest glitch they have, and I'm sure they'll fix it eventually. But for some reason, saving in PNG takes it longer than saving just about any other format. But once that saves, and sometimes you have to kind of speed it along by like threatening to close it, and then we'll say it will save after it closes, and then it will show up, right? So the PNG is here, and when I double click it, it will open in preview. And you should check it for sure to make sure you turned off the background. When you check it in preview, notice we don't have a white background. Instead, we have a gray background. And that's preview's way of showing its empty space. And that's what we want, and that's what we're going to upload to PhotoBucket. So let me come around and help you with it. So I'm viewing it in preview. In preview, I can use the same shortcuts for zooming in, and I can see the quality of the pixels. And all that's good stuff. I'm not going to do any color alterations or anything for this exercise. Now, I have a PNG saved to the desktop, and I've checked that there is no background on it. So it is not surrounded by white pixels, right? It's a free cutout, transparent kind of sticker. I think of PNGs as stickers. Now I want to upload it to PhotoBucket. So I go back to my Chrome browser, and I go to, this is the long way, but if you ever forget, I go to my digital art page, I go to links, and I go to the PhotoBucket link, and that's the username and the password we're using this semester. I try not to show that on YouTube videos, but there it is. But it will be changed, in the future. To navigate the PhotoBucket, I go to Library. And then I go to Digital Art 1, navigate through the sidebar, Digital Exercises, Exercise 1. And you'll notice it's empty. And we're going to upload to there. And you can upload to there simply by hitting F11, grabbing your PNG, dragging and dropping it into that folder. Okay. You'll see it processing on the bottom. And then once it comes in, you're not quite done, because what you've just done is you've delivered your artwork to the gallery, but the gallery needs to know like who the artist is, that kind of thing. So I'm going to show you how to label them and title them within PhotoBucket. Even though your file is already titled, right? Your file name should have your name in it and Digital Art FA17 in it. Hey, look, so many of you have done it. It's just populated, right? So this is all from our class. Then you click on it, and underneath, you'll be able to add a title. So this is all I want you to do for your work. I want you to always start with capital F-A and then 17. So we know it's from this semester. Because sometimes you can put things in the wrong folder, This helps us find them. And helps me give you credit for it. And then I just want you to put your first name. That's all. On projects where we'll submit multiple, parts, then you'll have your first name and then the number in the sequence. But we're just submitting one image for this. And then if you like that title, you hit the check mark, and there it is. And then as you guys are filling this in, as they're coming in, we want to order them by title. That's the default. And then they should show up kind of always in the same order. So I'll say that again. You always title them with FA17 first, then a space, then your first name. You don't need to describe the project at all. You don't need to do anything else. If you want to do something else, do it after you've put FA17, a space, and your name, so that they'll always show up in the same place within the folder. Yes, thank you for that. So if you have the same, actually I think the two, we have Brianna and we have Brianna. I think Brianna is with a Y.
Y and one A.
Yep, and Brianna is with an I. So either way, you can put a last initial if you want, but you don't need to. And I will try to always pronounce them differently too.
I don't know if my background was in mine.
Yeah, so So the beauty is,
And